Let's move in to the Civil War, the Platypus Cup, whatever you want to call it. It is the last installation of this game that we know about. Unlike the Apple Cup, that's been extended through 2028. I have not seen any word of this game getting renewed going forward. Oregon State travels to Autzen Stadium to take on the Ducks. Oregon is a 13.5-point favorite right now. This is a Friday night game, 7:30 on Fox. Gentlemen, can Bo Nix win the Heisman this weekend?
Absolutely. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. I've included in our show.
He's had the numbers, right? He's had the numbers this season. He's looked really, really good. I think everyone needs the Heisman moment, and I think that can come this weekend. If he puts up massive numbers in a rivalry game, yeah, he's going to win the Heisman.
That's fair enough. I kind of expected a little bit more pushback on that. Just for comparison, it seems like over the last couple of games, Michael Penix Jr. maybe has slid backwards in that race. He's just consistently failed to put up the 400 yards that we were seeing, right? And last week doesn't even throw for 200 yards.
Yeah, what a loser, not even passing for 400 yards.
Well, but when you've got Bo Nix doing what he's doing, when you've got Jaden Daniels doing what he's doing, listen, momentum and a full body of work matter to the Heisman Committee, no matter how many wins you have on your schedule. So I do think Penix Jr. is likely out of it. I think it's a two-man race. But for Bo Nix, 3,500 yards, 35 touchdowns through the air. He's got 5 rushing touchdowns. He's just thrown 2 picks. He's already set career highs for completion percentage and touchdowns, and he's just 70 yards away from doing so for yardage for a single season. Jaden Daniels, who we'll talk about a little bit against Texas A&M, he's got 3,500 yards, almost 3,600, 36 touchdowns through the air, 10 on the ground, and he's thrown 4 picks. Understandably, he's doing this for a one-sided team. That LSU team is dreadful on defense. They are not even close to consideration for the college football playoff. But for Bo Nix, he's putting it all on the line this week against a rival who is very, very good in pass defense. And that was the X's and O's that jumped out to me. Oregon State's pass defense has held up time and time again this season. They held Penix Jr. to just 162 yards a week ago. On the other side, though, Oregon State wants to run the ball. Trey, you texted me while I was out in East Texas. DJU just looks lost. The blitzes that Washington is bringing just has him all kinds of discombobulated. And DJU was not good a week ago. So they have to go through the ground. The problem is Oregon has the 11th ranked rush defense this season. They're giving up less than 100 yards per game, just about 96 yards per average. It's hard for me to, on paper, get Oregon State to a victory, but I think the question becomes, that's a large spread, 13.5. It is at home for Oregon, but in a rivalry game, guys, are we throwing the records out and saying these are two teams that don't like each other? Oregon State's still playing for a lot as far as a bowl game goes. Can they keep it closer than 2 touchdowns?
I think the pathway is definitely there, but the difficult thing, like you outlined, Mitch, is that rushing game matchup. I don't like if this turns into a Bo Nix versus DJU, shootout situation. I think Oregon wins this one going away. If Oregon State's able to somehow, some way find some room on the ground, then they're absolutely able to keep it close. I'm just concerned about that. And I'm concerned about the game plan because last week in a driving rainstorm, they decided that DJU was the guy that was going to help them win the game when they were getting 5, 6, 7 yards a carry on the ground. So hopefully they learned their lesson. I think they could have stolen that one from Washington late. If they were just committed to the ground game, used their timeouts, had about 5 minutes left on the clock when they got the ball back. They were moving the ball on the ground, but they decided the best way for some reason was DJU throwing it 15 to 20 yards downfield. And I just don't think that that's a winning formula. But this defense is not Washington's defense. Oregon's defense is much stiffer competition. And I worry if that game plan is going to work out either way. So the recipe is somehow, some way finding a way to get the ground game going. But I just don't know if Oregon's going to allow that.
It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Damien Martinez is going to have his toughest challenge of this season, I think, so far. I do want to shout out Troy Franklin for Oregon, a wide receiver that is just not getting the national headlines or accolades that I think he so clearly deserves. 68 catches, over 1,200 yards receiving, and 13 touchdowns. That is better in every statistical category than Marvin Harrison Jr. And yet you've got folks clamoring for Marv to win the Heisman, to be considered the best wide receiver in college football. I think a guy over in Washington has a bone to pick with that, and Rome Odunze. I think he's been better and bigger for his team this season. And then Troy Franklin has just been he's been the skeleton at the bottom of the pool in that famous meme, right? Like just nobody is talking about him. So I do want to give him his flowers. I think he's been tremendous this season. I'm going to take Oregon. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mitch.
I was going to say I'm going to take Oregon State plus the 13.5. I think this is one of those games that we just roll the rivalry card. Does it make real sense for Oregon State to stay competitive in this game? Probably not. Like on paper, I think Oregon wins this by 21 going away, like you said. But it is a rivalry game, and Oregon State has bitten Oregon in years that they had no business doing that, right? Last year they beat Oregon, and that was
like
an
a crazy
absolute
finish, but yes,
it was a crazy finish. So I'm gonna roll with Oregon State. I think hopefully, like you said, they learned the lessons from a week ago. They commit to the ground game, maybe some play action, but they've got to find a way to control the time of possession, control the clock, and just give the ball to your best player. It's not DJU, it's Damien Martinez.
Yeah, the other thing I'm concerned about with Oregon State, I'm going to take Oregon to cover this probably late. When Washington had the offense going in the first half, Oregon State, I know we highlighted that overall they did hold the passing game to just 162 yards this week. That's a big win against Washington, but they had no answer for Rome Odunze. And I think in better conditions, hopefully, I haven't checked the weather this week, but possibly in better conditions, I can't imagine they'd be worse than the first 3 quarters of that game in Corvallis last weekend. I worry about Troy Franklin doing the exact same thing that Rome Odunze did to the Beavers defense last week. Yep. I'm going to take Oregon to cover late. I just think they're too talented. And if they don't make the mental mistakes they did last year, then they would have won last year going away as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, guys, Oregon's going to win this one big. It's going to be ugly for the whole game, I think. I think this is just a game that the Ducks are going to roll in. And I have a couple of reasons. Number one, you guys already highlighted the defensive differences between the two, but I want to highlight the running backs themselves. Everyone's going to talk about Martinez in this one. Bucky Irving has more scrimmage yards than Martinez does on the year. He has a couple more touchdowns than he has on the year. He's a more effective weapon out of the backfield than Damien Martinez. And if you don't like it, tough, right? That's just what the numbers say. And when you turn on the tape, it's pretty clear that Bucky Irving is one of the most dangerous players on the field when he's out there. And when you give a guy like Bo Nix an amazing outlet right there with the deep threat with Troy Franklin, and you have these other receivers out here, Tez Johnson, right? There's plenty of guys to throw the ball to. There's plenty of weapons that you can use if you're an Oregon Duck. But the main reason I think this one isn't close is that Oregon knows they have to be convincing. They're absolutely scraping and clawing for a chance to make the playoff. For Oregon, a Rose Bowl feels like a consolation prize, right? If you go this whole year and you play as well as you play, and you got a guy who probably should win the Heisman Trophy, and you ending up in the Rose Bowl and not making it to the playoff, I think you're disappointed this year. And that's not to say anything about the Rose Bowl. It's a great game. It's a great bowl game to play in, but this Oregon team is different. And I think they're going to play like it. I think they're going to come out. I think they're going to look flashy. They know that the eyes of the nation are on them, and that they got to make a big splash here on a Friday night. And I think that they do it. I think they win this one huge. I think they take the run game out of it for Oregon State by jumping up a couple touchdowns early. And I think that they just don't even let them establish that. They'll get after DJU. They're going to put the pressure on him. That defense swarms the ball. Roll Ducks all the way in this one. Ducks are going to, steamroll in this one. It's not going to be close.
The only thing I worry about with Oregon running away from it is there a potential that they've got their eyes on the Pac-12 championship game already, avenging that loss to Washington, finding any possible way to make it into the college football playoff? I don't know. I don't know. It's something to keep your eye on for sure.
Gracious him. How about that?